call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get a roll call, please.
Okay. Wonderjohn.
Here.
Highboard.
Here.
Steffes.
Here.
Gardine.
Here.
Palmer. Here. DeHaan.
Here.
Klein.
Here. Thank you very much. Please note, as a courtesy to members of the audience and the Board of Education, to silence your cell phone. Public will be able to speak during public comment time if signed up. I have 4 forms. Are there any more? All right. Moving on. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, the consent action agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. We don't have any regular action agenda items tonight, so we're moving right to reports and discussion.
Sure.
Just like that.
Happy to announce that we have our audit report tonight and going to turn things over to Heather. And I know Kayla's here, and I also know our audit firm, Yo, and Yo is here. So without further ado, Heather, take her away.
All right, so I'd just like to introduce Michael Everard. He is the CPA and partner on our audit. We've worked with Yo and Yo the last 5 years, and he's going to give you all a presentation of the results.
All right, hi everybody. So everybody has a packet of information in front of them. So there's a big book with the financial statements. That's probably 60, 70 pages of information. Tucked inside of there is another packet with the single audit report information. There's also a letter inside of there, which is all of our required communication from us as your auditor to governance, management, and the board. And then there's also this presentation here. So this presentation is maybe 15 or 16 slides, and it summarizes all of the information in these 90 or 100 pages. So this is the official, reporting that gets filed with MDE and the federal government. So if you're always welcome to, peruse that for more information, but we'll just go over the highlights in this presentation. Okay, so just to start it off, every audit presentation I give, no matter what type of entity it is, the first 2 slides are always the same, and it's always on responsibilities. So this is a snippet from your audit opinion that says the district is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, which also includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of your internal controls. So it's kind of just laying that out there as, to say, as your auditor, we do not come in and clean the books up, and we don't work with the business office to make everything correct. Our job is to be independent, and we're supposed to be a second, that an independent reviewer type of situation. On the next slide, it lists our responsibilities as the auditor, and ours are very simple and straightforward. We have to follow professional standards and plan and perform your audit appropriately in order to issue our opinion. So just wanted to talk a little bit about what we do during an audit and what an audit is. So the audit standards say that we have to obtain an understanding of internal controls, and the reason why we have to do that is so we can plan your audit appropriately. So basically it's saying, we have no idea what to look at, where to spend all of our time, what areas are riskier than others if we don't understand the inner workings of the district. So we do that to plan your audit appropriately. We don't do that to give you an opinion on your internal controls. So you get an opinion on the numbers that are in your financial statements, and this is just to plan our audit correctly. So in order to do that, we start by looking at your policies and procedures. And we look to make sure that your policies are designed appropriately and your procedures are designed appropriately, and then also that they're functioning as designed. And we mainly accomplish that by what we call walkthroughs. So we pick various transactions. We usually come in around June, so it's actually before your year end, and we kind of get this stuff out of the way before the main audit. And we walk them through from start to finish. So a good example would be payroll. If there's a new employee at the district, how do they get set up in the system? What is their starting salary? Who approved that? Where is that documentation kept? What happens if there's a change in the rate of pay? What are the controls on that? What retirement plan do they belong to? So those are the type of things that we're looking at across all your different transaction cycles. And then we take a look at, who's in the business office and what their experience level is. Is your payroll clerk brand new, has never done payroll before, or has she been doing this for 25 years type of thing. So we use a combination of procedures. We can do substantive procedures, which is probably what you picture us doing, combing through boxes of receipts and confirmations and that type of thing. But we can also do analytical procedures, which are comparisons mainly. So it'll be comparison either to the prior year or maybe to other districts of a similar size, other districts in the area, or other expectations. We do have to do a great deal of testing during the audit, of course, and one of the things that we have to do is test people that belong to the MIPSR's retirement plan. So we're looking at the district level and seeing all the inputs that go into the plan and if those were reported to MDE correctly. Every year we try to be as unpredictable as possible to a certain extent, and the audit standards actually say that we have to incorporate an element of unpredictability into our audit every year. So every year we'd have a brainstorming and we think of something that the business office hopefully is not going to expect us to look at, and we kind of spring that on them during the audit and don't give them a lot of time to prepare for it. Because you are a governmental unit, technically, we have to conduct your audit in accordance with government auditing standards. So it's just extra rules, extra regulations. For the most part, there's more scrutiny placed on the spending of those dollars because they're heavily taxpayer funded. So if you were a for-profit organization, there's less rules you have to follow. You do get quite a lot of grants, so we have to do some grant compliance testing. That's mainly accomplished through the single audit, which I'll talk about on a future slide. And then there's some other compliance testing that we do as well that MDE likes us to look at. And then at the end of the audit, we prepare the financial statements for you. There's a series of reporting that's required. The data collection form is filed with the federal government, and it's kind of a summary of the audit. There's also submissions that have to go to MDE and your ISD. And I did want to mention bond auditing because there are some significant bonds that have been passed in the district in recent years, and we audit that every year as we go. And then at the end, when those bond projects are complete, there's more reporting that's required to be filed with the Department of Treasury. But we do that every year so that once that bond is done 3 years from now, we don't have to go 4 years back in the future for documentation. So that's an overview of the audit. Okay, so we'll get into results now. You received a clean opinion. Remember, the opinion covers your numbers only and not your internal controls. So basically, we're attesting that all the numbers that we're about to go over, all the numbers in those books are materially accurate. So when we did that internal control evaluation, if we came across any type of deficiencies that we thought were significant in any way, we're required to report that to you, of course. Having said that, we had no material weaknesses that we noted. We had no significant deficiencies, and those are it's technical terminology. Basically, a material weakness would be an error in your controls that is so bad that an error could slip through and it would materially misstate your financial statements. So that's the worst level of deficiency we can give. A significant deficiency would be similar than that. It would be errors would kind of fall through the cracks, but they might not be material in nature. So you received neither one of those, which is good. So on to the single audit. The single audit is a lot of work, both on the district's end and on our end, and it's less worried about are numbers correct. It's more, did you follow federal guidelines? So there's a number of federal grants that you receive, and every year we have to go through a process of picking which federal grants that we're going to test and spend most of our time on during the audit. Good thing is you are a low-risk auditee. Whatever you have, several years in a row of clean audits with no findings, the standards allow us to do a little bit less than we would if you were a high-risk auditee. So the percentage of coverage that we have to get on your federal audit is actually double if you were a high-risk auditee. So your major programs for the current year, which means where we spent all of our time, was the Child Nutrition Cluster and the Education Stabilization Funds. So I think this is the third year in a row of the Education Stabilization Funds. That's all those new grants, ESSER and GEAR and those type of things. They're all audited together as one pot of money. And then the Child Nutrition Cluster would be, the free and reduced lunch program. So we had no material weaknesses or material non-compliance noted there. No significant deficiencies as well. And it is important to note you do get an opinion on compliance with your federal grants. We have to attest and say you materially complied, and you did. Next is just some other required items we have to communicate. We had no disagreements with management, no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. The third bullet point I think is grazed over a lot of the time, but is probably one of the most important things, is that we had no material audit adjustments. So, it's very typical during an audit we might find, a little thing misclassified, because of it was in the wrong account, it didn't have a correct code attached to it or something like that to comply with MDE's reporting. But there was nothing material whatsoever to report. We had a few matters for management's consideration. Those are very minor, not significant recommendations, just as your auditor that we noticed, and it's just something for you to consider. I'm going to go over one of those and I'll slide in a little bit here as we go over the financial results. So this slide is a summary of how all of your funds did. So starting on the left, the three funds to the left are major funds, and they're called major funds because they have significant amount of activity in them. The other four funds off to the right, those are considered non-major, so they're kind of all reported in one column on your financial statements, but we broke them out separately here. So your general fund, almost $82 million in revenue and almost $82 million in expense. So we had just a small profit there of about $370,000. So you ended the year at $8.4 million of your fund balance, and we'll go over that a little more in a future slide as well. You have three capital project funds. So your first one on the left there is the 2020 and 2022 capital projects. So that's for all the activities that are going on right now. So you can see a change in fund balance of negative $17 million, and sometimes people look at that and they're like, wow, the fund lost $17 million, but that's what it's there for, is you got all that revenue in to do these projects, so it's going to do nothing but go down until that money's gone. Also, the 2019 capital projects fund, that is almost completely done. Started the year at about $1 million left to spend, and there's only about $96,000 left at year end. And then the sinking fund took in $2.7 million and spent $2.4, so a small increase there as well. A few other funds, your debt service fund basically is, you levy enough your millage rate in order to pay your debt service payments as they become due, so that always has about a wash, and same case here. The food service fund is one I wanted to talk about. So took in $2.8 million and spent $3.2. So there was a loss there of about $400,000, which is what we need because technically the food service fund has too much money in there, and it's nothing to do with anything the district has done. Basically, the last few years, the reimbursement rate for meals through MDE has gone up dramatically, and most districts in Michigan are kind of in this boat. So it's something that everybody's aware of. MDE is aware of it, and there's not any kind of harsh penalties or anything like that. So, but what we want to see is this fund balance declining steadily to get back to where we need to be. So we're definitely on the right track. However, technically at year end, we still have too much in that fund. So we'll have to keep working on that next year. Okay, next slide, we've got budget to actual performance slide here. So we've got the original budget on the left. So that was a budget that was approved in June of last year. That's before your fall count is known. That's before the governor's final budget was passed, et cetera. The final budget was passed in June of this year, so just a few months ago. And then, of course, the actual is where you actually came in at. And you can see very little difference between final budget and actual performance there. So we had anticipated a change in fund balance of about $220,000, and we actually came in at $370,000. So that's pretty close on a large budget like that. Next several slides, we've got some graphs. So this one is just showing where your general fund dollars come from. So 64% of everything is coming from state aid. The federal piece of $5.6 million makes up 7%. We do still have some residual COVID type grant dollars that are going to be spent next year, but that's going to continue to decline in the future. And all that COVID money was a one-time thing, and will not be renewed in the future. Next slide is the same graph except for expenditures. So if you add up that blue and that red piece there, it makes up 80% of everything, and that's just payroll. That's salaries and benefits. And it's interesting, every year those numbers get closer and closer together, that the benefits are almost just as much as the salaries, with the healthcare costs and then the retirement expenses rising every year. Everything else is minimal in comparison there. Okay, this slide, this is a popular benchmark that we present at a lot of our board meetings, and it's fund balance divided by expenditures, and that's something that I think our clients are used to seeing. So for the last year, there's no comparison data available for 2023 yet, because there's still tons of audits that are still out there and not done at this point. So 2022 is the most current we have. So Grandville is at about 11.2%, which is low in comparison to your peer group, which is school districts between 5,000 and 10,000 students, and then also the state average. So peer group came in at about 18.6%, and the state average is about 20.7%. So, it's obviously a lot of different ways to look at that. It's really hard to compare yourself to other districts because everything is not apples to apples. A couple other statistics that I looked up as well, just kind of tells more of the story. I did look at, there's a document that MDE puts out every year, and it's just data that compares you against every other school district in Michigan. There's 823 districts on the listing. Average teacher salaries, you were 83 out of 823, so that was top 10%. And then also administrative costs per pupil, you were 778 out of 823. So lower ranking means less spending. So you were the 45th lowest in Michigan. And I believe you're about the 45th largest school district as well. So, it's a lot of different ways to look at that, but I just wanted to mention that.
I have a question already. I'm trying to hold off, but I figure this is a perfect slide for that. So when we look at our peer groups, right? Do you have any information that, and I know 20J is becoming less and less and less of an advantage, but it's still out there. It's still something we've never gotten. How many districts in our peer group, when you're looking at this 18.61%, receive 20J funds?
Right, yeah, I don't have that data. That's just, that's districts up, a lot of them are probably over near Metro Detroit. And I believe there were, if I remember right, there were somewhere between 20 and 35 districts that fell in that range. So yeah, they're getting different funding than you do. A lot of the COVID funding was based on different metrics, income levels in the community, that type of thing. So yeah, it's like I said, it's not an apples to apples comparison. So I threw it on here so you could look at it, but there's a lot that goes into that. So.
No, and I appreciate that. So another question tied to that. Is there any high-level indicators that can provide when schools receive the COVID funds? How many of them added them to their war chest, to their
Fund balance?
fund balance? Any
One more-
information? Because, okay, you receive the COVID money.
Mhm.
Are you going to spend it all? You're going to spend it over time?
Right,
How
every
much
district
is-
does that separately as well. I had like, let's see, the first year that all that money came out, I actually had some of my personal district that spent almost zero, whereas a lot of districts really loaded up that first year. So that's one more thing why it's not an apples to apples comparison. You know, maybe a few years down the road when the COVID money's all gone and everybody spent it up, that would be a better time to look at things.
And I guess for the newer board members, that's where I'm trying to
Seeing the data that I've seen
look at an even playing field.
shows we've usually been between like 8 and 12, somewhere in that percentage range, haven't we, over the last 8 years?
Where we should be.
Yeah, we used to be below 5, yeah, almost.
Only for a little bit.
Very small time, but we were. But very good question, I think, Bob, on that, because I think, you know, there are districts who put a lot of money into their staff and their supports for kids during those COVID times when they received the funds and spent them right away. And then I would say maybe not so much in some other districts. And we put our money in our people because our kids needed support. And I think while our fund balance is still around that same range, like you mentioned, Brent, could it be higher? Yeah, but would we feel good about it? I don't think so.
Because there'd be cuts
We
happening.
would have not put that money into supporting our kids, which is what it was for.
One more benchmark I just wanted to mention too. I didn't have it on the slide, but I don't know. I feel like it was around 2012, 2013, something like that started to be focused on more. But unrestricted or fund balance divided by your unrestricted revenues used to start to become MDE looked at that. So once you get down toward like the 5% range, that's when, you know, they're starting to get worried. You were at, it depends on how you calculate it, but you're between 13 and 15%, so you're nowhere near that 5. So it's, you know, you're not in, you know, dire trouble or anything like that. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Okay, couple other graphs I like to present. This is on enrollment trends. And so over time, Michigan school districts, almost every year, the enrollment is going kind of down, 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 almost in a straight line. So we've had some years of increases here, and it hasn't been quite as dramatic as a lot of other districts, but you can see, and this is the blended rate, so if you've got the fall count data in your head and it doesn't match up, that's why. But it's about 5,500 kids this year, and if you go back 10 years, back to 2013, it was at 5,644.
I don't know if this is a question for you, do we have any data from the city or the county about where that's headed, you know, for our area? Because you can constantly see, or you can consistently see, I should say, you know, West Michigan is a place where young people want to come and people want to move towards. I mean, this is 2.6% over a 10-year stretch, right?
Yeah.
Not a huge variance, but
I can tell you two things impacted. Number one, there's significant loss. There's been significant loss over the years in Michigan over the last 5 to 7 years. If you're relatively flat, which we are, and when I look at that, I mean, when you look at that enrollment, I mean, you know, you look at the spacing, you're right, it's not that big of a difference. When you're relatively flat, you're actually, it's kind of like you're growing because you have kids when everyone else is losing kids. Another thing that plays into school is a choice. We could have a lot more kids, but they wouldn't be Grandville kids. And not that, I mean, when kids come here, they're Grandville kids, but we could open up the floodgates and our enrollment could shoot up. Do we want to do that? I don't think that's a good thing to do either. So we've been very strategic, as you know, on our schools of choice over the last 5 years or so, just making sure the kids that we foresee might be leaving or the kids graduating and the number of kids coming in, that those balance out. So, but as far as, I think West Michigan is a very attractive place, and I think in the state, we haven't lost like other parts of the state have, but everybody has lost in
Right.
general. And the birth rates just are,
Yeah.
they're
Birth
not there
rates
either.
down.
Right.
Yeah, they're down too. So, you know, you add those things and you know, we're always looking at enrollment. And like I said, we're just trying to find that sweet spot every year.
Yeah.
And just for, just to help understand the numbers on the left side of the chart versus the right side of the chart. When Roger came, we turned the valve off a bit, or turned it down when it came to school of choice. So when we're probably very close to what our numbers are typically for our area, and not inflating them just for the revenue, which is what we were doing 2009 until then. In 2009, if you recall, huge recession, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we tried to inflate where we could. That was the chosen
Yeah.
part.
No, I have no problem with the numbers and stuff like this. It's only 2.6% over the 10 years, right? It's a blip, right? It's not anything major to concern about. I was just wondering if there's been any data that we've received from the county or from the city or the Chamber of Commerce, anybody saying, hey, this is what we're looking, this is what our projections are going forward. Because to your point, right? I mean, we can build all the houses we want. If you're only having one kid per, you know, family, right? It's not doing us a lot. It's not going to help us a ton, right? You know, type of thing. So I just was just more interested in that as a
Heather will give
macro
you some
question.
insight.
So we also use Stanford consultants to help with our enrollment projections, and this year I'm looking to add Middle Cities too, just to have just a change. But basically, the way I look at it is I just start with the county birth rates and project out from there based on percentages of what has been 3-year, 5-year averages. But a lot of the questions that we discuss during those meetings with Stanford has to do with the housing market and that type of thing. So they do that research for us.
Okay, cool. Good.
And then just to kind of jump on what Roger just said and Heather said, I'm a little bit of a trivia buff. Don't hold this to me, quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure as of not this most recent census, but 2010, I am pretty sure that Michigan was the only state in the entire country to lose population. So. Okay, moving on. This is a graph that shows your general fund balance and kind of what's been happening over time. And this is very similar to, you know, a lot of districts in Michigan, slow and steady increases. But it's just kind of nice to see, you know, where you were at. In 2013, we had a fund balance of, you know, 2.5 million, something like that. And this year we're up to a little bit over 8 million. This is another graph I like to present. It never looks as dramatic as it really is by looking at this, but this shows the retirement rate history from 2009 through today. So back in 2009, the rate was 16.5%. For the current year, it was 45%. Next year, it will be 48%. So it was almost tripled in that amount of time there. Just to kind of explain this graph a little further, the blue line represents the total retirement rate, and then the orange line is the unsubsidized rate. So the blue line starts in 2014 because that's when the 147C money started coming from the state of Michigan. So I do want to mention that the unsubsidized rate for next year is going up almost a full 3%. So if you take 3% of your payroll, that's about $900,000 of extra retirement expense for next year. And I saved probably the most boring slide for last, the new accounting pronouncements, but I do just want to say a little bit about them because every year both the CPA firms and the business office are hit with these new rules, and some of them can really be very time consuming. And That was the case with this year with GASB 96. It's a new standard that says, if you remember last year, I talked about leases and the change where we're putting leases on the books. With this year, we're doing the same thing, except we have a new fun acronym that we call SPITA, which stands for Subscription-Based IT Arrangements. And the Governmental Accounting Standards Board made this effective for this year, and it says that the business office has to take a look at every arrangement that they have where you have, well, just like it sounds, a subscription-based IT arrangement, and you have to gather a whole bunch of information and evaluate if this should be recorded on your books or not. It was a lot of work. I know it was more work on the business office than it was on us, but so that was effective for this year. In the end, I think we were able to say that, you know, those arrangements did not represent a material dollar value on your financial statements. There's certain ways to get out of recording them that the standards allow, and the biggest one is if your agreement is 1 year or less, then you don't have to go through this. So I think a lot of those agreements are a year or less, so we were able to you know, get around that. We did still have to test that during the audit though, and we had to pull support for those and make sure they were actually a year or less. So we do have a new standard coming out for 2 years from now, which is GASB 101 on compensated absences. And I won't bore anybody with the details. We'll talk more about it next year, but it's another change that's coming.
When it comes to, you know, to me, 96 makes sense because, you know, 10 years ago, we decided to invest in electronic devices, and it's only growing, and our infrastructure is growing immensely tied to that. So and when I say immense, you know, compared to where we were, right? So you got to be subjective in that statement when you evaluate it. But to me, this is a nice baseline to start tracking that kind of stuff because, and it, obviously, if you don't have to do it less than a year, most everyone gets a greater break if the agreements are greater than 2, if not 3 years.
Right, and it really, the standard really does not have a big effect on your financial statements because
Right.
no matter what the number is, you're going to record a big asset and a big liability, and they're going to offset each other, whether it's 50,000 or 500,000 or 5 million. So, but yeah, you're right. So, oops, problem reading the document. Not sure what happened. That was the last slide other than this thank you slide here. So, but we want to say thank you to the board very much. We really enjoy performing your guys' audit, and we really like working with Heather and Kayla in the business office, and Roger, and everything went, you know, very well, just like it did last year. And yeah, so if anybody has any other questions they didn't get in during the presentation, I'd be happy to answer those.
I only have one more question. Let's Thrive. Where did it come from?
Oh, so we had our 100th year anniversary as a CPA firm this year. So we did a rebranding, and if you remember our presentations in the past, it was a lot of maroon, and
Yep.
so we worked with a firm, like a branding marketing firm, and we came up with this whole new, you know, new logos, new colors, new message, new everything. So that's part of that.
Okay, it's kind of fun,
Yeah.
especially if you're working with schools.
Right.
You know, we like those too. Go Dogs.
Well, we want to say thank you to you for your thorough audit and for the time it took to work with us, and I appreciate the calls that we took for it, and thank you to Heather and Kayla for your immense amount of work that just shows, you know, in the audit. I know you separate entities here, but his work just proves that your work is phenomenal, then we already knew that anyway. Thank you so much.
I just was thinking this in the beginning of your presentation, when you look over our policies and procedures, like you're here every year.
Mhm.
So do you have to look at it every year, or you're like, yeah, you guys had it last year?
Well, as you know better than anybody, the amount of policies you guys have is there's a lot. So there's a lot of them we don't look at. We look at ones that have an effect on the financial statement. So we're looking at your purchasing policy and your bidding policy and conflict of interest, those type of things.
But if they were the same last year,
Mhm.
you have to I don't know.
Well, we
I
have
guess
these
that's
policies
just-
saved in our file, and we'll note right on there, no changes from the prior year.
Gotcha, okay.
And, but yeah, we've got them all marked up with everything you're supposed to follow, and some districts have a lower threshold for going out for bid, just they've elected to do that, so we're making sure you're following your own policies, basically.
Thank you for that answer. Thank
And
you.
we are a public institution.
Yes, yes. Thank
So
you.
All
you
right.
need someone
Any other
to
comments or
look over
questions?
someone's shoulder.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the fall district update.
Sure. So thought it'd be great to mention a few things that have taken place this fall and are taking place this fall. And I'd like to start out with something that's just so amazing, Victory Day. We have Katie and Eric here, and they're going to present some information regarding Victory Day. But, it is just one of the best events every year. And I always say to people, if you can't leave that event with a big smile on your face, you're not going to smile that day, because it's just so incredible. And every year, we've done it for a few years now, and every year, I go, and every year I just get so much more excited about it and just feel so good about it when I leave. It's just that big reminder in the fall of why we're here and what education's really about. So without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Katie and Eric. They are here to give you some information about Victory Day.
All right, well, first, thank you so much for having us. I know we kind of just asked if we could share a little bit about Victory Day. We are big fans of it, of course, and the more we can kind of spread the word and get it out to people, the better. So we just have a couple things we want to share with you and just tell you a little bit more about it. So Eric's going to start us off with a little bit of history and how he brought Victory Day to Grandville for us.
Right. You guys don't know me, I'm a special education teacher at the high school, in my 10th year, and the varsity football coach in my 10th year at Grandville. So when I was on the east side of the state, I taught at a school called Gibraltar Carlson. I actually coached at a school named Taylor Truman. And there was another neighboring school, Trenton High School, that had a Victory Day. And they were one of the first schools in the state to do it. And what they did as it kind of grew over there was they invited all the area schools to participate. So you would bring your team captain. So our whole league actually went to Trenton High School, and we would kind of work with the kids there. So that was really my first experience with it. And as I had been there for a few years, Aaron Seghetti, who kind of founded Victory Day from Trenton High School, asked me, "Hey, do you want to take a bigger role in it?" When I was over there, and I did. And when I came over to Grandville, him and I had some conversations, had some meetings, and said, well, it'd be great if we could have our own over here. There's really no one on the west side of the state doing it. So in 2015, that was my second year here, we started, and it's kind of grown and grown and grown. And in all truth, Katie's the star of everything. I'm the football coach, so Brent Kempel gives me a great introduction. But I think really after the first couple of years, we really planned out a lot of things, how we want to organize it. But Katie really does a great job of running the show with that, as does Matt Workman with the Links program, Brenda Ott, Julie Smith-Boyd, so many people. And one of the big things for me with Victory Today was my message to my players was that just by doing what I would call everyday normal things and interacting with people, interacting with these kids, you can make a tremendous difference just by doing something for a couple hours. It doesn't have to be extra special. Just go and hang out with these kids and be yourself. And I think from my kids' perspective, they love it. They love it, and I know that our participants love it too. And with that, so I think it just is an event that really shows what support this school district and this community provides to all our kids. And I think that's what really makes this district special, is that we're going to have programs, have clubs, have extracurriculars, have everything for everybody, and this district supports everyone. So yeah, it's a great event. I think Katie's going to go from here and kind of talk about a few other things.
All right, perfect. So this year we had our event a couple weeks ago. It was our 8th annual event, so we had to take a year off from COVID, but we're back and stronger than ever. We're looking forward already to next year. If you're not familiar with the event, what we do is we pair our students K-12 in the cognitive impairment and ASD programs with our varsity football and cheerleaders. And then they just mentor them for the day. They form relationships. They have these amazing opportunities. And we have a little video we're going to show you in a little bit, but it is so cool. If you've never been there, I encourage you to be there. And it's so fun to look and not only watch the players and the students, but also the people in the background, because there is not a single person without a smile on their face. So it's just a great reminder of what we are and what we do here at Grandville and why it's important that we do what we do. So the students, we do like almost a mock game, so they get to score touchdowns and run plays and interact with the players and the cheerleaders. It's all about making relationships, building memories, and then the community and staff and everybody comes and supports. So it's a pretty awesome activity. So our video should pop up. Here it is. So be prepared. It's going to be some maybe dance music. So, but we want to share what this is all about. And really by watching it, you're going to get a good feel for it. Oh, volume helps. Nope.
Maybe we're not going to give
Pause.
music.
Roger will sing for us. He's really good at it.
Yeah, you can dance it out.
Which song do you want, Katie? I'll do my best for you.
Got a little Bruno Mars on, so. So that is Victory Day.
That was really good.
So I just encourage you, if you've never been there, like be there because it's super worth it. And that doesn't even give you like a portion of how awesome it is to be there in person and to hear the students before and after and the players and participants. So it's pretty amazing. So what's next? What are we doing to kind of continue this and to grow and to build on? We've already started planning for next year. As immediately as we start planning, we're already thinking about what we can do better and bigger and just get more people involved. Something that a couple of us were talking about, had a great idea of, is we want to have some kind of an alumni event next year for our past participants and players. How awesome for them to have something to come back to and to have those connections. So that is one of our big goals for next year. Maybe a tent, maybe some breakfast, whatever, but that community and building those relationships and keeping them going beyond Grandville, because that's the point, right? Beyond Grandville. Something that we had done before when we first started this is Eric would send his players over to our classrooms, and if you've never seen, I teach lower L cognitive impairment, so kindergarten through 4th grade, and if you've never seen high schoolers come in and have a dance party with their kiddos, like they just throw all caution to the wind. They don't care what anybody thinks about them, and that is so amazing for them and for our students. So we're super excited to get the players back in our classrooms to do more mentoring, more relationships, more community. And then our goal is always just to really increase community involvement. So we have some really amazing supporters and participants. This is by no means an inclusive list of all the people, but we can't do it without Eric and his coaching staff, Julie and her cheer staff and supporters, our football and our cheer boosters, Matt Workman and Brenda Ott, and our Links program. They come in and they do face painting, they do yard games with the kids, our special education staff. All of we missed the picture because I was not doing sound correctly, but there's a huge picture of staff that come and run the volunteer tables, and they have donuts and they have water, and every time a kid comes in, they're more excited about that. We have some really great support at Trophy House that help us with our shirts and jerseys. Jen Belgraf took all of those amazing photos for us, and then not only did she take them, but she put them in an album and shared them with all of our families, just because, and she made sure that they could have access to that. And that is a gift for our families, something they might not be able to access otherwise. And then Chief Ingham in the police department has been a really good supporter. They provide some of our end of the activity prizes for our participants, and then just being there and like throwing the football with our kids. Like, what a great opportunity. And then we just want to say thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for being there. And to us, Victory Day is what being a Bulldog is all about.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Great job, guys.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does anyone in West
go ahead.
Michigan do this?
Hey,
Besides
Eric.
us?
Eric.
Does anyone else do the Victory Day in West Michigan?
South Christian, I believe, does it.
Okay.
Hamilton does it.
Hamilton started it,
Okay.
yeah.
From us, do you think? Like from?
I think we were the first school in West Michigan, I believe.
Cool.
Yeah.
We were the first one in West Michigan.
Yeah,
We actually
yeah.
have a student that transferred. He moved from Grandville to Hamilton, and a parent reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, you're never going to believe this. They do Victory Day there." And that was
That's
the first
so
thing.
cool.
Unity Christian does it
Unity
too.
Christian.
Unity Christian. does
Thank
it.
you.
So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Way to lead the way.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Katie. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
What a game this week, right? I know you're not even asleep, so don't even go there.
All right, so a few other things. I mean, year started off great, and it's hard to believe we're hitting October already. I mean, are you kidding me? It's just amazing. But our new middle school robotics competition center is flowing like any other, new house you live in. There are things that you just celebrate every day you walk in, and other things you go, ooh, we have to tweak something there, we have to do something. So we're still in that process, but overall going really, really well at both places. I know Doug and the RoboDogs are gearing up for a lot of activities on the horizon. Very excited about that. Also, our 5th and 6th grade building is being renovated, as you know. And along with that being renovated, and I think Brian Mulder and Stacy Bile are quickly realizing how fast time's going by as well. But along with that is a new building name contest. So they threw that out there, and my understanding is they're down to 5 names, and I know this week we're meeting to take that to the next step. So very excited about that. They've had several staff visiting the Ron Clark Academy and really focusing on engagement. Several people, I've had many emails after people have attended and said, this is the best professional learning I've ever had. I'm so fired up. And so on. So just very excited about that. Our transportation hub is being redesigned, as you know, as part of our recent bond that we had. And part of that is an idea that came from a local business, local person that I had lunch with one day and said, I want to help the school. I'm not sure how, but you know what we deal in. We're in automotive and diesel technology, and just curious, any ideas or thoughts? Well, one thing led to another, and through that conversation, we are establishing, as part of that transportation department, a auto tech bay where our students will be able to do very high-end things to set them up for certifications. From that to, again, very basic community ed classes like how to change your tires and change your oil. And I'm sure every parent in America would love that. And so we'll have that in Grandville as well. Last week, we had a crew that attended 2 places to really check out the internal parts of a Bay Area. Scott Weller, also from Weller Auto, joined us as well, and we went to the Career Tech Line place at the Ottawa ISD to see what they have, and we also went to the Well-Built facility that's on Chicago Drive. That's part of Weller, and just amazed at what takes place out there. Holy cow. I mean, I know some basic car stuff, but you realize how much you don't know when you go into a place and watch what kids are doing and what business industry is doing with the automotive world. So it was just a great learning experience. We took Ron Denning with us from the high school, who does a lot of our classes, and I know him and Scott Weller spent a lot of time having discussion about the internal aspects. So some next steps will be developing that internal component. Also, we're going to create an advisory board that will have staff, community, business people in the auto industry, so that we can continue to look at what we're doing and continue to grow that particular program. So very, very excited about it. I think we have a great beginning, and we're going to have something really special that, again, I don't think too many districts have. We're not trying to compete with our ISDs and what they do. We're trying to strengthen what they do and overcome that obstacle of, gosh, I'd like to do something in that area, but the travel's too much and I'm going to miss out if I go, and I'm not going to do it. We want to be able to provide kids with some of those experiences to be stepping stones into what could be for them here. And at the same time, we want some of our younger kids immersed in some of those things so they can take a look at them, and if they have a particular fascination or passion for it, something that helps drive that passion into further learning. So again, very, very excited about that program and what it offers. For those of you that haven't heard, we sold Riverbend. We've had a lot of discussion over time as a board and a group about what to do with Riverbend, and it has been mothballed for some time. We had a lot of storage that was there over time. We contemplated, do you tear it down? What do you do with it? There's not enough land there to build a future elementary and have the space that you would need and so on. So after weighing all the factors, we were fortunate to to have somebody that provided an offer for that facility, and now they own that facility. So again, just wanted to pass that along. The nice thing about it is if you go by there, I drove by today again, and I know Brent and Joe said this last time, it really looks nice. They're doing a nice job fixing it up, yet it still has that, it has that river bend look to it. So for all of those people who have either gone to school there, or their kids or grandkids went to school there, they can drive by and that building is still there, and it's looking nice. So very excited about that.
It's a church? Is that correct?
No, it's a school.
It
It's
will
a
be a
small
school.
school. Yeah,
Okay.
small school. I don't know what else will do it, but I know it's gonna be a school. That part I know for sure. So, also, update from the curriculum side of things. Scott has a few things that he wants to mention.
We're excited, the classes that we passed last year are off and running, so Ron Denning is teaching that automotive class. We have the aeronautics course is up and running. The flight simulator is plugged in and ready to go. I don't think they're going to be fully using it in the course until next semester. But if you are ever interested, we'll get you in to check it out. I have already crashed a plane in the ocean.
Great.
But super, super experiences for our kids. We're 6 weeks in. Our elementary schools have finished all their beginning benchmark testing. So we've done MAP, we've done Acadience. We switched to online digital Acadience this year. It saved us 3 days in testing time. We're excited about that. And then data entry time as well. They've had their benchmark meetings and have tier 2 and tier 3 interventions up and running. We're just finishing up. I'm double checking that our MAP data is, that everybody's complete, so I can close that window, and then we'll start pulling some data, some high level data, and can do some presentations for you on that. But just excited to be up and running with all those things. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that's it in my report. I'm sure we'll have a winter report soon, and it'll be here before you know it. So.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Our last thing on our agenda tonight is our public comment period. Just a reminder that all of the bylaws and policies about public comment are in the back of the forms if you'd like to review them. During this time, members of the audience who've signed up may come up and speak for 5 minutes. Mr. Hybauer will take note of the time and give a 1-minute warning. You may speak about educational issues that are important to the board to hear. And if you have anything to say that might violate the right of others under the laws of defamation or invasion of privacy, please consult your legal advisor first. All that being said, as usual, our first person up is Michelle Thomas, followed by Bob Picard.
Michelle Thomas, my address and phone are on file. I didn't have anything really prepared, just some questions that I came up with or things as the meeting went on. Victory Day, I can't talk about that enough. I agree. The presentation just doesn't do it justice. You really have to be there in person. My daughter was finally able to participate in person, live, and cheer this year, so that was exciting for her. We've been going and watching for years, but to be able to be a part of it was really great. I've watched those relationships. There's a little boy named Paulie who was paired with Carson Smith over the last few years, and he goes to the football games, and he followed Carson to the baseball games to watch. He was at his graduation party, and the lifelong bond and friendships that these kids are forming, it's really a worthwhile cause and event, so I love that. Driver's training, I want to revisit that. I now have a 16-year-old finally with a driver's license. That program between segment 1, segment 2, and the test costs over $700 to do outside of the school. I think I spoke on it one other time about the possibility. I know some schools do have an in-house program. I don't know what it takes to get that up and running, but I feel like at that price point, there have to be a lot of students that just can't afford, and that's a life skill that I feel like maybe we could look into offering something on that. And then I have questions from the audit, and I know you can't respond, so I'm not sure if the notes can just get taken or who I can send those questions to. My first question would be the food money that he talked about that needs to go down, that we need to reduce that. with all food being free this year, the breakfast and the lunch, how will that money go down? Are you allowed to spend that money elsewhere? I'm just wondering how those funds would get allocated. And then my other question is, as he mentioned, the COVID money is coming to an end, and I did attend the COVID meeting probably 2 years ago that Heather put on. I think there were 3 parents in attendance of what those ESSER funds and how that money was being spent. With that COVID money coming to an end, it was my understanding that any programs started with COVID funds could not be discontinued when the money gets discontinued. And if that's true, where will the funding for those programs that were started with the COVID money, where's that money going to come from to continue those programs? So I don't know if I need to email Heather or if somebody could get me back. I have some questions on that. But.
Yeah, send curriculum questions to Dr. Merkel, send financial questions to Heather.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I suggest copying Raj.
Next up is Bob Picard, followed by Kevin Weiss.
Bob Pickard, I live in Byron Center.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Bierup and board members for letting me speak tonight. My proposal is top priority for our children and teachers. And I know that's why you're serving as a superintendent and on the board, because our students and teachers are your top priority. I've listened to John talk about the security in your schools. High school and junior high are covered. I love your junior high. I went through that this summer. Amazing school. I've talked to some of your elementary teachers. They said there's no security in those schools. My proposal is tonight to get armed guards in all our schools. As we know, these shootings are happening in elementary schools where there's no protection. They're using assault rifles to get into our schools, and the response time is so critical. So I would love to have an armed guard there in all our schools. I've seen videos, high school kids walking out of the school in protest. Nobody's protecting them. I've seen a video of a middle school student saying that she's terrified being in the school. I was in the school one day walking the hall, and I heard a car backfire, and the kids in the classroom started to scream. They thought somebody was shooting the glass in the doors and coming in. I had to walk in the classroom and show them it was just a car going by. That's how terrifying it is. I'm a retired Wyoming public school employee, 22 blessed years as a custodian. When all these shootings started in Texas, I asked God, what can I do to protect my children and my staff? God has a sense of humor. In college, I pitched, and I set a record. I hit more batters than I did getting out. So this was my only defense. We can do a whole lot better than trying to hit a shooter with a baseball. I work at Costco gas station, and a member came in and says, why don't we put veterans in our school system to protect our children? I thought, what a great idea. They've served our country. They know how to defend it. They'd be perfect in the school. A couple days later, Chris Jansen comes in, and he has a protection agency company, hires all veterans. And I said, Chris, would you mind if you bring your veterans in our school systems? He said, absolutely. So I've got some information I'll pass out tonight when I'm done. And I know there's red flags that go up, but I've talked to a lot of people that are on board. One of the things, Chris would not bring anyone in the school systems with PTSD. They would only serve in our states. So, and if you have any other questions, I'll pass these out. I'm on here. I've talked to Angela Regas, my state representative in Byron Center. She's on board. If you have any questions, you can call her or your state representative in Grandville. I'm sure you'd get a lot of answers there. God dropped a whole bunch of stuff on my lap, and I don't know why, because I'm not a good public speaker, and I'm just kind of taking his leading. I ended up meeting a Texas police officer. He told me, we got a bill from Michigan. It's a Michigan Public Act 330. We've got money in our government for school police officers. There is a funding. Andy, I met him and I've talked to him recently. He said in Lansing, they do have police officers in all their schools. So Superintendent
1 minute.
Barrett, I will give you this and another bill from Texas, give you some reading to do if you don't mind. Texas passed a bill. They have armed guards in all their schools. I've been in contact with Andy. I asked him what kind of armed guards they are. I haven't got an answer back yet. But what they're doing, I think it's going to go all over the country because our students are terrified, and I know our teachers are too. So I will pass some information out. Thank you for listening to me tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the W stand for? I've heard it, yeah. I was just curious, I just had to ask you. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, next up is Kevin Weiss, followed by Beth Light.
Name's Kevin Weiss. Most of you already know me. You've heard me complain up here, you've heard me brag on my kids, but this is truly a heartfelt evening for me. I want to thank each and every one of you individually and collectively for what you've done for my three kids. All three of my kids have gone through. The twins are juniors. My youngest is in 7th grade at the brand new middle school. Proud as heck on that. I'd like to address basically 3 things. First, the academics. The academics, and it's proven with all 3 of my kids, they're challenging, but yet they have the support when they don't have all the skill set. And that goes all the way from, they started in Century Park, so I'm speaking specifically for that program. Century Park built a foundation that these kids are building on now. I can't say enough good things about the academics in the program. All 3 of the kids are excelling academically. Athletics. Ironically, Coach Stiegel was here. Kudos to him. He does a lot more than just coach football. He really does. The coaches, the support units around the boosters, yes, I'm part of them too. The training staff, they take good care of our kids. The staffing. At Century Park, like I said, they built the foundation for the kids. And they're prospering on that foundation. At the middle school, they pushed them a little bit further, kind of let them find their way. And now at the high school, they're challenging and they're focused. They're offering such an eclectic variety of classes and directions. I can't say enough. I want to say this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for my kids, for my wife and myself. I appreciate you and your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last speaker for the evening is Beth Liggett.
Just a couple of quick comments to wrap things up tonight. I think we're wrapping up, but I just want to say again, also I echo your comments, just say thank you to the board. You guys, you know, well, you don't get paid very much, and you certainly don't get paid enough. I know that's not your job to do, but like for all that you do, both on all these nights here and off the field, doing research and doing reading and going to events. I know that makes a big difference to our families and our kids. I point out, when I see a school board member, I point that out to my kid and says, that's another parent or community member serving our community, our school district. So again, I know a lot of you have suffered a lot of not so nice speech about you, and you've endured that. So thank you so much for doing all that you do. And second, I wasn't sure if Jason, you were going to mention this, but as we band parents say, it's Bandtober. Okay. Yes. Oh yeah, Kim too, I think. So we have competitions every weekend, starting this weekend, going through the first weekend of November when state finals are. We've got a tough road ahead because we are in the top division this year, and so we're against Rockford. We finished second in the state last year. That's going to be tough to do this year. So we appreciate all of your support. As you may have heard, there may have been discussion in a meeting that I missed that it's based on the musical Six, a Broadway musical about the 6 wives of Henry VIII. So it is, the props are massive, the music is compelling, it's just a fantastic show. Our big home competition is October 14th, so if you can make it to that, that would be great. There's also key card books, so if anybody needs any one of those, so I can give them some. But I was a band chaperone this summer at Western Michigan, so I got to spend 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. with these kids, 140 kids and staff and everything, and they work their butts off. It compares to any athletic camp and training experience. I am so proud of these kids. What a fantastic group of kids and parents. So please come out, support our bands on the 14th or on Friday nights, give them a big pay attention during halftime, please. That'll encourage us all. So thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much. It's nice to feel all the positivity in the room tonight. Our next Board of Education meeting will be on Monday, October 16th, 2023 at 7 p.m. here at the Administration Building. This meeting is adjourned.